This is Sunday Morning Matters.
Hey there, good morning. Thanks so much for starting off your Sunday with us. We appreciate it. This week was all about immigration, right? And while most people agree that migrant children should definitely not be separated from their parents, there seems to be little bipartisan agreement over the greater issue of comprehensive immigration reform. I spoke to Congressman Jim Costa about both topics Wednesday. Congressman Jim Costa, nice to have you back on the program. Thank you.
Always good to be on your show.
Well, let's start off by talking about what happened on Wednesday. President Trump signing the executive order, keeping families together, also keeping that no tolerance, the very strict policy that he has. But what was your reaction to the president making that step, and what do you think pushed him to make it?
Well, I think the overwhelming response throughout the country of the notion of separating children from their mother and father, which was a new policy that began 6 weeks ago that resulted in some 2,600 children being separated from their parents, and with the potential that if this policy continued, by August we could have as many as 30,000 or more children separated from their parents, is simply unacceptable to the overwhelming majority of Americans. I mean, for people that we have strong family values in our country, and the notion that you would ever do something to whether it's our religious organizations, it cuts really among Republicans and Democrats and independents alike. No one believes that, or hardly anyone I can tell believes that that's a good policy to pursue.
There's been some talk back and forth about the deterrent aspect of this policy and separating the families and the zero tolerance policy in general. A lot of people say that there has to be a deterrent, that right now there is no deterrent. There's nothing to stop these families from trying to get across. And so if it was to stop people from coming across, or at least trying to in the future, does that give it any sort of veracity? Does it give it any sort of claim that it might have been a good deal in the long term?
Let me tell you, I believe that there's strong bipartisan support to ensure that we have border security. Under the Bush administration, I voted in 2006 and 2008 to nearly double our Border Patrol agents and to provide additional support. We have 700 miles of a wall that exists today. And I believe today, in the proposals that were discussed last fall, there was a willingness to look at how we might better improve to ensure that we protect against transnational gangs, human trafficking, drug trafficking. All of those things are important to protect and maintain our borders. But the reality is that illegal border crossing is among the lowest levels since the 1970s. Those are just facts. And as we know, facts are stubborn things. But I don't think it's ever acceptable under this zero tolerance policy that came about 6 weeks ago, that clearly was for political leverage, as it was in September when the executive order to revoke the DACA program that protected Dreamers was to be used for political leverage. And so let's be clear why those actions were taken. No one, the majority of members that I serve with, believe that we should not do everything possible and whatever we can in terms of recommendations to improve and to protect our border security.
Well, let's talk about a comprehensive legislation piece that Republicans and Democrats can get together on. It's hard enough right now, I think, to get Republicans together on this issue because there is a variance there when it comes to this. But what will it take to get Democrats and Republicans together? Because first of all, let me read to you what the president said about Democrats on Wednesday. He said they don't want to vote for anything. They don't care about lack of security. They would like to have open borders where anybody in the world can flow into the country, including from the Middle East. How do you react to that, and how do we bring Democrats and Republicans together on legislation for immigration?
Well, let me just say that that statement is totally false. And just last December, when the Senate was trying to work together on a bipartisan basis on the DACA issue for Dreamers, there were 54 senators that voted for it, Republicans and Democrats alike. And the president at the end opposed the measure. So there have been repeated efforts. Back in 2013, the Senate voted a comprehensive immigration reform program that would have fixed our broken immigration system, and it passed by 68 Republicans and Democrats, and 32 opposed it. And there on the House floor would have been, I believe, an overwhelming bipartisan support of 250 or more House members, Republicans and Democrats alike, that would have voted for that measure, would have it been brought to the floor. Unfortunately, Speaker Boehner at the time chose not to because of the political dissension within his own conference. And you're quite correct. Right now, the bills that are being considered, they are having great difficulty just among themselves considering it. And to answer your question, what it takes is that we put aside the politics, because the politics for so much of the difficult issues involving those people who are undocumented, the 13 million or more, those that are living in our valley, that are obeying the laws and working in our agricultural industries. There needs to be some solution. Literally hundreds and thousands of students, Dreamers that are going to school. And I think if, as the president attempted to last fall, but then got carried away clearly with the politics, to sit down, as he did in the cabinet room with Republicans and Democrats, and said, I can do this, can you do that, I'll take the heat on this. Those are the kinds of things that ultimately are going to result in a bipartisan compromise. And let me tell you, it will be a compromise, because there will be a number of Democrats that won't like the compromise, and there'll be a number of Republicans that don't like the compromise. But that's how you get there.
Congressman, for you and for other Democrats, will there need to be language in a bill that will include a path to citizenship, not just for DACA recipients, but for the vast majority of those 13 million undocumented immigrants that we have here in this country?
Well, if we're talking about comprehensive immigration reform, then I think there would have to be some path to legalization that ultimately could allow for once you had a permanent green card status, that one then could, over a period of time, if you obeyed the law and did everything under the constraints under the 2013 measure, it was a almost 7-year program to get a green card status. It means you had to have a job, gainfully employed, you had to learn English, and you had to pay a fine for coming here illegally. That's not amnesty. And then if you did all of those things, in another 5 years, you could then apply for citizenship on your 13th year. That, again, is not amnesty. That's earned citizenship. And so if we're talking about comprehensive immigration to deal with the entirety of the problem, the 13 million or more that are here, that are undocumented, that are not here legally, then it would have to involve some of those things, and border security would have to be a part of it. And if a wall was part of that, where it was applicable, along with other security measures that involve high technology, drones, those kinds of things. One of the things I learned at the border on Monday is the high level of cooperation between our border and custom agents, the Border Control, and the Mexican authorities at that level. And that's one of the reasons that people trying to illegally come across the border is at one of the lowest levels since the 1970s. Yeah. But clearly more needs to be done.
Congressman, that's all our time. I appreciate you taking the time here this week, and hope to talk to you again soon. Coming up after the break, Tulare has a new mayor. Anger over comments made about the ag industry proved to be too much for Carlton Jones to survive. We have that story next.